The night the war turned invisible. March 2nd, 1945, 2:14 a.m. Just outside the Rhine River, near the shattered German town of Ries, a low fog crawls across the frozen fields like a living thing. The moon is gone. Nothing moves. Nothing breathes, and then a deep metallic rumble rolls through the dark. It sounds like armor, a column of Sherman tanks, maybe 30 of them pushing toward the front line. Their engines growl, their treads clatter. You can almost feel the vibration in your chest, the kind that tells infantrymen something massive is coming. But there's a secret here. If you were standing just a few yards closer, you'd hear something strange, a faint hiss, like air escaping from a bicycle tire, because those tanks aren't tanks at all. Private Fred Fox, 23 years old, kneels beside a dark, shapeless heap lying in the mud. He pushes his fingers under the heavy rubber and lifts. A turret rises from the earth, soft and flexible like a child's balloon. It's an inflatable M4 Sherman, one of hundreds. He turns to Sergeant Bob Tompkins, who's checking a generator powering massive speakers hidden inside a hedgerow. "You think the Kraut'll buy it?" Fox whispers. Tompkins doesn't look up. They have to. A cold wind cuts through the field, carrying the sound of distant artillery. It smells of mud, cordite, and fear. In the distance, real American soldiers, an entire infantry division, are secretly withdrawing to prepare for a crossing of the Rhine. Their lives depend on the illusion these men are building tonight. This unit is officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. Unofficially, they're called the Ghost Army. No one in the dark German bunkers across the river knows that the armored column they're watching through binoculars is made of rubber, or that the radio operators sending encrypted chatter are actually art school graduates mimicking communication patterns. To the Wehrmacht, it will look like a full American division has moved into position for an assault. But look closer. There are only 1,100 men here. Artists, actors, sound engineers from Hollywood, set designers, painters, men who never expected to be this close to the enemy, now pretending to be 10 times their number. Tompkins gives Fox a nod, and Fox opens a valve. The inflatable tank swells upward, its shape filling out under the moonless sky. In 10 minutes, it looks real enough to fool anyone at a distance, real enough to draw artillery fire. And that is the point. Every heartbeat matters. Somewhere out there, German observers are listening, watching, calculating. If the illusion works, the enemy will shift reinforcements toward this fake division, away from where the real crossing will soon happen. If it fails, the Germans will know exactly where to hit the real troops. A voice cracks through the portable radio on Fox's hip. "Sound crew, stand by, begin rolling in 60 seconds. Fox pulls the hood of his parka tighter. He glances at the river, at the silhouettes of ruined farmhouses. He knows German snipers are somewhere out there, too, staring through scopes, waiting for shapes to move. And yet this tiny, strange band of artists and engineers is about to alter the fate of thousands 60 seconds. The speakers hum. Fox hears the first shuddering roar of tank engines, all pre-recorded and mixed by a Hollywood sound technician transported to the front line. The ground doesn't shake, but it sounds like it should. Across the river, a German spotter blinks into his periscope and radios his commander. "American armor is massing, prepare counter-battery." He has no idea what he's seeing. Fox wipes the sweat from his palms. The illusion is working, for now. But what he doesn't know yet, what none of them know, is that this night will test the Ghost Army harder than any deception operation before, because the Germans have already intercepted a strange radio pattern earlier that day, one that suggests something is off, something too perfect. A single mistake tonight could expose everything. The men who fought with illusion's fog still clings to the riverbank as dawn creeps toward the horizon. The inflatable tanks, 43 of them, now sit arranged in staggered lines, exactly the way a real armored battalion would deploy before an assault. Even the mud looks disturbed in the right places, because Corporal Ellsworth Kelly spent half the night dragging a wooden board to fake tread marks. Kelly isn't a tank crewman. He isn't even a soldier in the traditional sense. Before the war, he was a painter studying abstract forms in New York. The Army barely taught him how to fire a rifle before shipping him to Europe with a brush, a sketch pad, and a strange assignment. Make the enemy believe something that isn't real. All around him this morning, the Ghost Army begins its strange, frenetic dance, a performance staged for an audience of unseen German spotters. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Ingersoll, the mastermind behind this deception unit, had warned them months earlier. Your battlefield is imagination. Your weapons are illusions. So they go to work. A team of sound specialists drags massive 500-pound speakers through the mud, positioning them exactly where artillery crews would be. They look like giant steel suitcases with grill fronts. Inside each one sits a record player connected to amplifiers designed by the engineers who once built effects for Orson Welles. Their job now is to make artillery that doesn't exist sound like it's ready to tear the Rhine apart. You can almost feel the tension as Staff Sergeant Jack Kiefer wipes moisture off the turntable. He carefully lowers a stylus onto a shellac disc labeled Company D, Tanks Starting, Volume 80%, Loop. Within seconds, a low-frequency rumble saturates the fog. The sound blends with the cold morning air until it's impossible to tell which noise is real and which is fabricated. A passing infantry officer from the real 30th Division stops in his tracks. "Hell," he mutters, "you guys are louder than our actual tanks." Kiefer just grins. But audio and rubber alone aren't enough. A convincing deception requires behavior, so while half the Ghost Army builds props, the other half becomes actors. Sergeant John Jarvie tightens the straps on a stolen patch of the 6th Armored Division, even though the Ghost Army isn't actually part of it. This is one of their specialties, impersonating entire units. They rotate insignias, vehicle markings, and even slang so convincingly that they could fool friendly troops if needed. Jarvie checks his reflection in a Jeep's window. Today he is not John Jarvie. Today he is a sergeant of a division that isn't really here. He turns to Private Irving Geiss, who is adjusting a painted sign that reads, 6th Armored Division HQ. 200 yards. Geiss was a graphic artist before the war. Designing fake headquarters signs is almost too easy for him. Think the Germans will catch on? Geiss says. Jarvie shrugs. If we do our job right, they won't even know we exist. But someone does. A reconnaissance squad from the 84th Infantry, real soldiers, approaches them with stiff expressions. Their commander, Captain Sanderson, steps forward. "You boys moving armor across the river tonight?" he asks. Jarvie keeps a straight face. "That's the plan, sir." Sanderson nods and moves on. He doesn't know he's talking to actors, and he never will. Meanwhile, the radio deception team sets up inside a battered barn. The radios glow in the darkness, their tubes clicking softly, filling the wooden beams with a faint amber light. Here, the men create fake traffic nets, streams of messages that mimic the patterns of entire divisions. It takes skill, observation, and a touch of artistry. Sergeant Art Seiden meticulously taps out coded transmissions, imitating the rhythm of real operators he had studied for weeks. He even breathes like them, pauses like them, curses like them when static crackles. War is detail, deception is precision. Behind him, Lieutenant Bill Blass, future fashion designer, sketches camouflage ideas in a notebook while keeping an ear on the radio. The room smells of damp hay and hot circuitry. Rain patters softly against the roof. And then the barn door bangs open. A runner from headquarters gasps for breath. "Message from command," he says. "German intercept operators detected abnormal radio signatures last night." Seiden stiffens. "What do they mean? Abnormal?" "They think They think the transmissions sounded too professional, too clean. A silence settles over the room. Too clean, too perfect. A fake division must sound messy. Real soldiers argue, stumble, misfire. Correct. The Ghost Army might have been too good at its craft. If the Germans sense something is wrong, everything collapses. Seiden takes a slow breath. "We'll fix it," he says. "Start scrambling, add chatter, make mistakes." He grabs his key and begins tapping again, but now he slurs a few clicks, stutters, varies his cadence. He sounds human, imperfect, believable. The runner leaves, but his warning hangs in the air like smoke. Outside, on the far bank of the Rhine, German commanders begin shifting their artillery units. Their maps show a large American presence forming opposite Ries. If they strike soon, they might cripple the coming assault. But which target is real? Which one is illusion? The fog thickens as the Ghost Army waits for the German decision. And soon, a new threat begins to move toward them. A threat no inflatable tank can stop. Something is approaching from the German side. Something real. Phantom divisions in motion. March 2nd, 1945. 05:37 a.m. The fog is beginning to lift, revealing skeletal trees and shattered farmhouses along the Rhine's edge. From a distance, the battlefield looks alive with activity. Tanks rumble. Jeeps crawl along dirt roads. Soldiers march with purpose. It's a scene that should signal imminent attack, and to anyone spying from across the river, it does. But the truth is stranger than fiction. Every tank that rolls, every troop that marches, is a carefully orchestrated mirage inflatable armor, painted canvas dummies, and carefully placed lighting turn muddy fields into a convincing theater of war. Even shadows have been manipulated to mimic the rising sun glinting off steel. Private Fred Fox crouches behind an inflated Sherman, his binoculars trained on the German observation post barely a mile away. He can see their antennas poking through the mist. He can almost see the minds behind them, calculating troop strength, guessing attack patterns, anticipating artillery targets. And that is exactly the point Colonel Ralph Ingersoll walks briskly along the riverbank, clipboard in hand. Each of his men knows their cue. Each inflatable tank is positioned within inches of its designated spot. Each sound effect, from distant tank engines to marching boots, is timed to perfection. The Germans must believe the illusion. They must act on it. Lives depend on it. Ingersoll stops near a line of tanks and adjusts a small radio speaker buried in the mud. "Make it believable," he mutters. "Make them think we're 10 times bigger than we are." Behind him, Sergeant Bob Tompkins signals the sound crew. The rumble of armor begins again, rolling across the field in waves that no real observer could distinguish from reality. Meanwhile, the fake infantry advances, dragging canvas dummies on ropes to simulate soldiers moving in formation. Across the river, German commanders are reacting. Radio chatter, intercepted by American intelligence, reveals that artillery units are being redeployed. They believe a full division is massing, ready to strike. Yet it's only 1,100 men playing dress-up. One misstep could expose the entire operation. Fox glances at his watch. It's almost time for the main deception, the simulated crossing. From hidden positions, the Ghost Army begins preparing pontoon bridges, their noises carefully amplified through speakers. Soldiers fire blank rounds at calculated intervals to simulate live artillery support. The illusion is almost tangible. Lieutenant Bill Blass crouches near a swampy field, adjusting a canvas hill to block a section of real ground. With a few strokes of paint and carefully arranged poles, the Germans would see a fortified position bristling with tanks that don't exist. He steps back, wipes sweat from his brow, and whispers to himself, "They're going to buy it. They have to." But perfection is dangerous. Yesterday, a German reconnaissance plane nearly spotted a flaw. The shadows of the fake tanks didn't align with the sun. The Ghost Army had scrambled to fix it overnight, dragging canvas flaps and tarps to create the right illusion. Every movement, every detail must now be flawless. Suddenly, a shout echoes across the field. One of the men spots a real German patrol moving closer than expected, their binoculars trained directly on the Rue's heartbeats race. Fingers tighten around radios and ropes. Fox raises his hand, signal to freeze. Every soldier becomes a statue. Every inflatable tank sits silent. Every sound effect pauses. The Germans scan the area. Then, slowly, satisfied, they retreat. It's a small victory, but in a war of illusions, small victories mean everything, Tompkins exhales. That was too close, he mutters. Ingersoll steps up beside him. Remember, he says, they never see the real danger. They only see what we let them see. And as the sun finally breaks through the fog, casting long, distorted shadows across the field, the Ghost Army continues its march of illusions. A river will be crossed. Artillery will fire, lives will be saved. All because 10 times the number of men they appear to be is willing to pretend. But the Germans aren't idle. Intelligence reports suggest that Hitler's spies are now analyzing the fake divisions with a renewed intensity. If they detect patterns too perfect, too rehearsed, the illusion could crumble. And at the very moment the Ghost Army prepares its next move, a new challenge looms on the horizon. The real assault is approaching. The line between fact and fiction is about to blur in a way that will define the outcome of the Rhine crossing. March 2nd, 1945, 8:12 a.m. The sun has burned away the final wisps of fog, revealing the battlefield in stark, cold clarity. Yet what you see isn't what's real. Across a 2-mile stretch of mud and shattered farmland, phantom divisions continue their advance. Inflatable tanks glisten in the morning light, their rubber surfaces catching the sun like polished steel canvas dummies march in formation, rifles held at the ready. The illusion is flawless, if you don't know the truth. Sergeant Bob Tompkins kneels beside one of the larger inflatables. Checking the valve pressure, a small tear could ruin everything. Across the field, Private Fred Fox is repositioning a tank that leaned awkwardly in the morning breeze. Every detail counts. The angle of a turret, the length of a shadow, the spacing between units. The Ghost Army has learned that reality is persuasive, but believability is an art. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Ingersoll steps onto a slight rise overlooking the operation. He surveys the scene with the eye of a director. Behind him, the sound team adjusts their speakers, blending recordings of tank engines, distant artillery, and marching infantry. Every low rumble and metallic clatter is timed to fool not just German spotters, but the human brain itself. Ingersoll's right-hand man, Sergeant Jack Kiefer, watches a group of canvas infantry dragging dummy artillery into position. Perfect, he mutters. They'll think we're a full corps. This is the genius of the Ghost Army. They fight with imagination as much as with weapons. Hollywood sound engineers, set designers, artists, and designers have turned a battlefield into a theater. Every prop, every noise, every gesture is calculated to manipulate perception. Even their radio deception is an art form. Inside a dilapidated barn converted into a temporary command post, Sergeant Art Seiden taps out messages at a precise rhythm. Each click, pause, and crackle is designed to mimic a real division's communications pattern. Too orderly, and it looks suspicious. Too chaotic, and it seems amateur. The balance is delicate. Seiden leans back, listening to the looped chatter he's recorded. A slight stutter here, a mispronounced unit designation there. It all adds authenticity. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Bill Blass sketches new camouflage patterns on dummy trucks, ensuring that from above, everything looks as credible as possible. Outside, the German observers are reacting exactly as planned. Artillery units are being repositioned, reinforcements diverted, and reconnaissance teams remain uncertain about where the real threat lies. The illusion works because the Germans are trained to believe what they see, and the Ghost Army is the master of what they make the enemy see. Fox glances across the field at a particularly impressive inflatable Sherman. Its turret rotates with a faint hiss, casting long shadows that look disturbingly real. He smiles. 10 men, a few balloons, and some sound effects. And we're fooling Hitler's best. But the stakes are high. One slip could unravel the deception. Yesterday, a wind gust nearly toppled a dummy artillery piece, sending it rolling into the mud. It had taken hours to inflate, and position one accident like that could have been catastrophic. And now, new intelligence complicates matters. German spies have intercepted unusual patterns in the radio traffic again. They note that the troops are too coordinated, too deliberate, almost like actors on a stage. Ingersoll gathers his men. They're analyzing us closer than ever. Every move from here on out must be perfect, but human. We need errors, improvisation. We need life. The men scatter to their stations, adjusting, repositioning, improvising. Fox replaces a torn canvas dummy. Kiefer recalibrates speaker volumes. Blass repaints a fake gun barrel so it catches the sun convincingly. The battlefield has become a living canvas, a performance measured in inches and seconds. Hours pass. German reconnaissance planes circle overhead. Every shadow, every glint of sunlight is a test of the ghost army's ingenuity. And yet, despite the danger, a strange exhilaration fills the men. They are soldiers, yes, but they are also artists, performers, illusionists, fighting with paint, sound, and rubber. Suddenly, through the radio crackle, a new message arrives. German intelligence has moved artillery units based on the Phantom Division's positions. Entire battalions have shifted, leaving gaps where the real crossing will occur. Ingersoll allows himself a rare smile. The Ghost Army's deception has worked, but the moment of relief is fleeting. They know that soon the real assault must begin, and with it, the thin line between illusion and reality will blur dangerously, because the Germans are not merely observing, they are learning. And if they discover the trick, everything will collapse in an instant. The Crossing and the Chaos of Reality. March 2nd, 1945. 11:45 a.m. The Rhine is swollen with winter melt, its dark, churning waters reflecting a gray sky. From the riverbank, you can see the Ghost Army's illusions stretching across the field, a forest of inflatable tanks, canvas soldiers, and dummy artillery. They appear ready for battle. But now, the real assault is about to begin. Colonel Ralph Ingersoll watches as the first elements of the genuine 30th Infantry Division approach the river reel soldiers, fully armed, fully trained, fully alive to the danger that lies ahead. They do not know which German positions have been tricked, which artillery pieces will fire blanks, and which shadows are real. They only know they must cross. The Ghost Army, despite their successes, now faces a new challenge, blending illusion with reality. Some inflatable tanks must be moved to make space for pontoon bridges. Sound effects must continue, but without revealing that some soldiers are fake. Every misstep could give away the deception, or worse, endanger the real troops. Private Fred Fox kneels by a pontoon bridge, guiding the engineers as they prepare the crossing. He can feel the river's icy breath on his face, hear the distant rumble of German artillery that has yet to be tricked by their illusions. Each step the engineers take is cautious, precise. They know that the Germans are watching, but they think they see what the Ghost Army wants them to see. Meanwhile, Sergeant Bob Tompkins coordinates the sound team. They play recordings of tank engines, marching boots, and the occasional artillery salvo. The timing is critical. The illusion must be continuous. Break it for a second, and the Germans may realize the scale of the deception. Keep it perfect, and they'll fire at shadows instead of men. Across the river, German spotters scowl through their binoculars. Their maps are cluttered with phantom divisions. Orders are shouted. Batteries are repositioned. Units are moved away from the real crossing. One German commander mutters in disbelief, The Americans have doubled their strength overnight. Inside a barn repurposed as a command post, Lieutenant Bill Blass adjusts a dummy anti-tank gun to catch the sun in a way that makes it seem operational. His hands are numb, but his focus is absolute. Every detail, the angle, the light, the shadow, must convince the enemy. One wrong reflection, one stiff pose from a canvas figure, and the illusion could fail. Suddenly, the first boats carrying real troops push off from the far bank. The Rhine swells, waves slap against the hulls, and rifles glint in the weak morning sun. The men are tense. Each one knows that somewhere out there, German artillery could open fire at any moment. Yet most of the batteries are still pointing at shadows. Fox watches as a platoon lands on the opposite shore. The ground is muddy, littered with wreckage. For a moment, the chaos of reality and the precision of illusion overlap. Inflatable tanks sit nearby, sounding their pre-recorded engines, while real soldiers unload supplies and secure the landing. The German artillery, misled by the Ghost Army, remains focused on the fake units. It is a moment of fragile triumph. Every deception perfected, every sound and shadow manipulated, is now saving lives. And yet, the war has a cruel sense of timing. A German reconnaissance plane suddenly arcs overhead, casting a long shadow over the landing zone. Fox freezes. Kiefer signals for silence. The plane swoops low, scanning the field. For a heartbeat, it seems the entire illusion will be exposed. Then, as if obeying some invisible cue, the Ghost Army's performers remain perfectly still. Canvas soldiers stand frozen. Inflatable tanks are rigid. The pre-recorded sounds continue seamlessly. The plane passes. Ingersoll exhales. "That was too close," he mutters. But he knows the deception has held. The real crossing continues. Downriver, artillery begins to fire, but not at the real troops' batteries that might have destroyed landing crafts, are instead focused on shadows. The Ghost Army has bought the soldiers precious minutes, hours even, to establish a foothold on the far bank. Yet victory is not guaranteed. German counterattacks are inevitable. The real soldiers, fatigued and soaked from the river, must still fight their way inland. And for the Ghost Army, the danger never ends. They are exposed, lightly armed, and surrounded by enemy observation. One mistake, one blown whistle, could turn the tide from life-saving illusion to catastrophic reality. Fox glances back at the field, at the rigid, silent inflatables, the marching canvas soldiers, the engineers working as if nothing extraordinary is happening. A grim satisfaction washes over him. They've done their job. And yet, he knows that soon the war will demand more than illusions. Soon, they will have to vanish into the fog again, leaving only the real soldiers to face the enemy. Because even the best deception is only temporary. And out there, across the river, Hitler's spies are still watching. Vanishing into history. March 2nd, 1945. 2 p.m. The sun is high now, beating down on a battlefield that looks like chaos, but only to those who don't know the truth. On the far bank, the real American soldiers push inland, establishing positions and securing key terrain. Behind them, the Ghost Army begins its quiet, careful retreat. For a unit whose weapons were paintbrushes, rubber, and sound effects, their battlefield success has been extraordinary. The inflatables are deflated and packed away, the canvas dummies folded into bundles, and the sound systems dismantled. It's as if the phantom divisions never existed. To the Germans, the armored corps has vanished into thin air, leaving uncertainty and doubt in its wake. Private Fred Fox watches the field one last time. The river shimmers, reflecting the scattered debris and the faint outlines of deflated tanks. He allows himself a small, private smile. Hundreds of lives, soldiers who will go home, were saved because of illusions, because a few hundred men pretended to be thousands. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Ingersoll walks alongside him. "Never let anyone tell you this wasn't real combat," he says quietly, "because it was just invisible." The Ghost Army had done more than fool the enemy. They had rewritten the rules of warfare. Inflatable tanks, fake radio chatter, sound effects, all had combined to create a new kind of battlefield weapon: perception itself. Across the river, German commanders scratched their heads. Reports of phantom divisions circulating in their intelligence logs have sown confusion. Units had been misdirected, artillery misallocated, and commanders second-guessing every order. Even seasoned veterans wonder if the Americans have somehow multiplied overnight. The irony is striking. Art students, advertising men, and stage designers, never intended to face combat, had outwitted one of the most disciplined armies in Europe. They had done so not with bullets, but with creativity, audacity, and courage. Fox steps into a jeep and begins driving away, passing rows of deflated tanks. Sergeant Jack Kiefer rides shotgun, loosening a heavy pack of cables. "You think anyone back home will ever believe this?" he asks. Fox shrugs. "Not a chance. But we don't need them to. We did it here, where it mattered." As the Ghost Army fades into the surrounding countryside, the battlefield slowly returns to normal. The Rhine flows quietly, oblivious to the spectacle that unfolded along its banks. Only the real soldiers remain, carrying the heavy reality of war with them, unaware of the invisible shield that had protected them. History would remember the assault on the Rhine, the courage of the infantry, the strategy of generals. But for decades, few knew about the men who fought without firing a shot, who wielded art, sound, and imagination as their weapons. Yet the Ghost Army left a legacy that could not be erased. Their operations became a blueprint for military deception, influencing tactics in conflicts long after World War II ended. And though many of their names were forgotten, their actions saved lives, thousands of them. Private Fred Fox looks back one final time. The fog of early morning has returned, creeping over the fields like a curtain. The phantom tanks, the marching dummies, the sound of engines that never existed, all gone, leaving only memory. A voice crackles over a portable radio. "Good work. Ghost's extraction is clear." And with that, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops disappear into history, leaving behind a battlefield where perception became power, imagination became armor, and deception saved lives in a way no one had ever imagined. Because in war, sometimes the most powerful weapon is what the enemy thinks they see. And that was the incredible story of the Ghost Army, the men who fought without firing a single shot, using imagination, art, and courage to save thousands of lives. If you were amazed by their daring and ingenuity, don't forget to like this video, share, and subscribe for more gripping stories from World War II. Your support helps us uncover the hidden moments of history that deserve to be remembered. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next story.